Hi, I'm Don from DonDronesOn. Today, Transport Canada published their latest edition of the Aeronautical Information Manual, or the AIM document as we commonly call it. The AIM document is updated every 6 months, but today's update is significant because it contains an entirely new chapter, 30 pages out of 500 in the entire document, so almost 5% of the document, dedicated to remotely piloted aircraft, or drones. Here's what you need to know. Let me start out by saying this document is really good. You really should read it whether you're a certified drone pilot today or whether you intend to fly a drone in Canada in the future. It is really clearly written, it is well structured, and I like the way that it's gone all the way from the regulation, which it explains in relatively clear English, to the background behind the regulation, and includes in some cases background information and pragmatic tips and guidelines. That said, it does start out a little funny because the first sentence describes the official term as RPAS, but that's okay, we're going to call them drones from now on, and then it calls them RPASs pretty much the rest of the way through the document. The document has a really good section on sub 250 gram drones, such as the Mavic Mini, and it confirms what I said in my video earlier about the Mavic Mini, that the only regulation, the Part 9 regulation that applies, is the 900.06. However, it does go on to clarify that things like Class F restricted airspace still apply to the Mavic Mini. So no, you can't fly it at Niagara Falls. You cannot fly it at the Parliament buildings, for example, or any of the other 50-odd restricted Class F zones in Canada. It also has some practical advice in terms of how to interpret that 900.06 regulation, the so-called don't be stupid rule. And it says, basically it says there's no prescriptive elements of the regulation. In other words, it doesn't come out and tell you exactly what you can and cannot do, but you should use good judgment, you need to identify potential hazards, and you need to take all the necessary steps to mitigate any risks associated with the flight. And that includes understanding the environment where the pilot is operating to make sure you're not going to run into aircraft or people in the same area. Really good advice. Another great thing about this document is that when it starts to talk about controlled airspace and the restrictions around flying a drone in such airspace, it describes what these different classes of airspace are. So you don't have to go digging through 300 documents trying to figure all this stuff out. Well, of course you could watch my videos, but here it is in a document in one succinct place describing all of these airspaces. Generally speaking, I mean, it doesn't get into too much detail, but it's great that they have this in one spot. Now, one curiosity is that in this controlled airspace discussion, they introduce a new term, a new acronym, ANSP, which stands for Air Navigation Service Provider. And they just casually mention later on in the document that what they really mean is most of the time Nav Canada, which is the natural interpretation of that. But it's strange that they've introduced a new acronym for Nav Canada, but still talk about Nav Canada. They also have a pretty hefty section, I think it's 3 pages, talking about human factors issues, which is good. All this stuff is covered in my human factors study guide video. But again, here it is in black and white, and it talks about the limitations of your eye and vision, and the effect of dark, visual scanning techniques you should follow, of course the fitness to fly thing, and alcohol. I did have to laugh though, because they included this I am safe checklist in here, and when I did my human factors video, I found this checklist as well, but it has an error in it, and they didn't fix it. I did, but they didn't. If you answer any of the questions below as yes, you're likely not fit to act as a crew member. And it says, so are you suffering from any illness? Yes, well then don't fly. Are you under stress? Yes, you don't fly. Fatigue, have you had sufficient rest in the previous 24 hours? Yes. Oh wait, that means you shouldn't fly if you've had enough rest. Eating and drinking. Have you had sufficient and proper nutrition? The answer is yes, you shouldn't fly. You should only fly if you're tired and hungry, according to these last two. Oh well, nobody's perfect. So I'm not going to drain this entire document, but two other things I wanted to point out. They did make an attempt to clarify the maximum altitude rule, 901.25. This is absolutely atrociously worded in the regulations. They've tried to fix it up a bit. I don't think they've quite got there, but it's close. Our RPAS are normally limited by the regulation to a maximum altitude of 400 feet AGL or 100 feet above the tallest obstruction within 200 feet laterally. So a little more clear. I think they could have still done better, but there you go. The last section I wanted to point out is some clarity they've provided around advertised events. And I think this clarity is really good and really important and pretty clear, actually. So what they say is that unless you have an SFOC, you need to stay 100 feet away from the boundaries of the advertised event. And they clarify that the boundaries are the demarcation, like fences or gates or whatever like that. Or if the area is immense, like a fishing derby or sailing event or things like that, it's 100 feet away from people who are participating in the advertised event. These are some good clarifying guidelines. So there you have it, some tidbits from the March 26th, 2020 update of the Aeronautical Information Manual, and in particular the brand new chapter on remotely piloted aircraft. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe below, and let me know if you have any questions about the document. There's a link to it in the description below the video, and if there's any particular sections you'd like me to talk about in the future. Thanks again.